I'm Dan Buysse from the University of Pittsburgh, where I'm currently celebrating my 40th anniversary of working. So I have been in sleep for my entire career. And the thing that got me involved actually was an intriguing lecture from one of my attending physicians when I was a resident in psychiatry at Pitt. This was David Jarrett, and he gave us a lecture on how a 24-hour clock regulates hormonal rhythms, regulates our mood, and it just kind of opened up a new world to me. I'd never thought about that, and I thought of the time dimension of our biology and our psychology and our cognition, and I just thought it was so cool that I had to find out more about it. David introduced me to some other influential people at the University of Pittsburgh, including Chip Reynolds, Tim Monk, and the chair at the time, David Kupfer. So through initially a talk on circadian rhythms, I just kind of fell in love with sleep and rhythms and the implications for our health. So it was great working with such illustrious mentors at the University of Pittsburgh, and they introduced me more broadly to the field, and I just never stopped my fascination with these two areas, sleep and circadian rhythms. I've been involved in a number of different areas of research having to do at the intersection of sleep and circadian rhythms in humans. I see myself as a clinical researcher. Initially, I was focused on sleep in depression, looking at polysomnographic correlates of different aspects of depression, both in midlife and older adults. From there, I got more interested in sleep and aging, looking at, again, the intersection between sleep and circadian rhythms in older adults. Then kind of morphed more into research on insomnia. And from there, more recently, have broadened out even further, looking at how sleep influences and is influenced by all sorts of health outcomes, including cardiometabolic health, including cognitive health, and always having some focus as well on mood. How did I get involved with the AASM? Boy, this is a good question. So I guess I've always thought that it's important to try to make a difference, to help other people, and to have a voice in where things are going in my field and in my professional societies. And so I started, as many other people do, volunteering for committees at the American Academy, or at the time, the American Sleep Disorders Association. And I enjoyed that kind of work and looked for other opportunities to get involved. So I went from committee work to the board of directors and ultimately to becoming president of the Academy back in 2000. Continued to be involved not only with the American Academy, but also with the Sleep Research Society, and have stayed involved in both organizations in some way or other for the entire duration of my career. And now, as I kind of near the end of my career, I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to serve as president-elect of the Sleep Research Society, and then a 2-year term as president. So. At the time that I was president of the AASM, there were a lot of organizational identity issues, I guess is one way to look at it. So it was the time at which the Academy was fighting for sleep medicine to be recognized as a medical specialty. So we finally got into the AMA House of Delegates. We were at the time setting up the first exam, a credentialing exam from the American Board of Medical Specialties. And those two things, I think, really serve to really garner a lot more legitimacy to the field of sleep medicine in general. So it was a very active time, and had the opportunity to work with some really talented people on those issues. Right. Yeah, so there was really an iterative process, actually, with all of these, and is really an iterative process with all of these. So ACGME was another big one because we were looking for recognition of sleep medicine fellowships, clinical fellowships. And I think in each of those cases, it really relied on a groundswell of support from Academy members who just figured out which levers to pull in order to get a seat at the table. And so members really drove this, aided by the board of directors, to get seats at the table for the ACGME, the American Board of Medical Specialties, the AMA, and kind of those three things together really established our field in the pantheon of medical specialties. Other than saying what I said, that the process for gaining this kind of legitimacy for our organization, for our field, really was driven by members knocking on doors, picking up phones, and making contacts and just not taking no for an answer. So we had members supported by the board of directors who just had dogged determination. Our executive director at the time, Jerry Barrett, was also a force. And again, he was another guy who was not going to take no for an answer until other people recognized what we already recognize, that sleep is essential for health. So our field is, I think, in kind of an interesting position to be driven by two major organizations, of course, the Academy and the Sleep Research Society. And those two societies had kind of a common root. So they came from the same base and then sort of diverged over time. I have to say that as a lifelong member of both organizations, I have felt very comfortable going between organizations, one to the other, and a view that may be somewhat heretical, but I think that the relationship between the two organizations should be ever closer. I could actually imagine a world in which there is one sleep society that serves the needs of all of our members. I know that not everyone sees it that way, but I just think that you can't have a clinical medical organization without a scientific and research base. And you also have to recognize that the purpose of doing scientific research is ultimately to benefit people, to benefit patients. So to me, the missions of the American Academy of Sleep Medicine and the Sleep Research Society just naturally fit together. Both of our organizations have had the yin-yang symbol in part of their seals for some time, and I think in a similar way, the American Academy and the Sleep Research Society fit together as kind of two sides of the same overall mission. I think, like so many other people involved in this field, sleep and circadian science to me is much, much more than a profession. It's really my extended family. It's the people who I enjoy being around, people I consider friends, people who I've considered mentors. And there are so many people I wouldn't know. I will begin. So at the University of Pittsburgh, some of the people who've been very influential in my career were Chip Reynolds, Tim Monk especially, both of those two guys, David Kupfer, a very important mentor to me. And the guy who first got me interested was David Jarrett, who is a human circadian rhythms researcher. But as I got involved going to the meetings and learning about the work that other people were doing, I was just so fortunate to have been welcomed into the field by people who were slightly more senior than me and who've remained mentors and friends to me for decades. And again, I can't think of everybody, so I will undoubtedly forget somebody, but among the people who were very influential to me, Sonia Ancoli Israel, the late Chris Gillen, and I can't tell you how important it is as a junior investigator to go to a meeting where you don't know anybody and have somebody whose papers you've read come up to you and say, boy, I think what you're doing is pretty good and I'm interested, tell me about it. That is so influential. So people like Sonia Ancoli Israel and Chris Gillen did that. Some of the other people who had a big influence on me were people like Tom Roth, Jim Walsh, David Dinges, When I got to meet Chuck Seisler, I thought I had really, made it when Chuck Seisler would talk to me. Again, it was just so important that these and many, many other people who were influential on me really, took the time to get to know me and encourage me and support what I was doing. Made all the difference in the world. So I see myself as having come in kind of in the early second generation of sleep researchers. There was an entire group of people who were really the pioneers in the field, and that included my mentor, David Kupfer. And I am not exactly sure how he first got interested in sleep EEG in relation to depression, but he was the first person to have described short REM latency as a potential marker for depressive illness. And at the time, he had somehow made connections with other people who were starting to get interested in sleep and had made seminal discoveries. So people like Bill Dement and Ishmet Karajan, Howard Rothwarg, and these people just kind of found themselves, found each other, and decided to start meeting. And so this was, I guess, in the late 60s to 70s. I think the initial meetings actually kind of occurred in the late 70s, and I heard tales of these meetings, small meetings, single track meetings with lots of robust discussion and argumentation back and forth. And I think to me as a young faculty member, seeing the excitement that they had for this new field of sleep medicine and recognizing there was so much that we needed to learn, there was so much open space to go to in a way, just made it seem like the place I wanted to be. It was like a new frontier in medicine. And so glad that I had trailblazers to kind of map out the course in front of me, but I was very interested in taking up that challenge. The American Academy of Sleep Medicine has done so many things in its history. From in the early days, I think some of the major things that it did was just to get together the different sleep disorders centers to begin to set standards and credentialing for clinical sleep labs at the time. I think that the Academy played a critical role in developing a nosology of sleep disorders that helps us to communicate to the public and our patients why sleep is important to their health, what people's sleep symptoms mean and how they can be understood. Later, when the Academy was able to gain a seat at the table at the American Medical Association, I think that was a really critical task that the Academy accomplished. The Academy is responsible for ACGME accredited sleep medicine fellowships. And it also is the organization that pushed for a credentialing exam with the American Board of Medical Specialties, and that was another critical step in really ensuring that sleep medicine would have a seat at all the important tables of clinical medicine. I would say, well, another really important thing that the Academy did in conjunction with the SRS is to establish this annual meeting that we have. And I have to say that in the nearly 40 years that I've been involved in this, sleep has been my home. It's been the place that I have made friends, that I've established collaborations. And every time I come to the sleep meeting, no matter how many thousands of people are here, it feels like home. And I get to see old friends. I get to hear exciting science. And perhaps most importantly, I get to meet the next generation of scientists who are going to be leading us into the future with ever more sophisticated questions, methods, and findings. And it is just like a jolt of adrenaline to come to the meeting and meet people, hear science. I just can't think of anything better in my professional career. The AASM is one of the main driving forces behind sleep science and sleep medicine and sleep care for our patients.